The sound of her opponent's spine snapping had become as familiar to Kira as the roar of the crowd that followed. The violet-skinned Nexian champion stood in the center of the arena, her muscular frame adorned with ceremonial battle scars that glowed a faint blue in the dim light. Blood that wasn't her own dripped from her four-fingered hands, each digit ending in a retractable claw now stained crimson. "The undefeated champion remains," the announcer's voice boomed through the massive coliseum. 15 cycles unbeaten. The violet death of Arcturus. Kira didn't acknowledge the cheers. Her amber eyes, with their distinctive vertical pupils, scanned the crowd of various alien species, all united in their bloodlust. 3 guards would escort her back to her cell soon. 3 guards with stun batons and neural restraints. The same 3 who had grown complacent after years of routine. Tonight would be different. When the first guard turned his back, Kira struck. Her elbow crushed his windpipe before he could shout a warning. The second guard reached for his weapon, but her foot connected with his knee, folding it backward with a sickening crunch. The third managed to activate his comm unit before Kira's fist collided with his temple, silencing his call for help mid-word. Alarms blared as she sprinted through maintenance corridors, following the route she'd memorized over years of careful observation. Each intersection brought more guards, but adrenaline and desperation made her faster, stronger. A lifetime of combat had taught her efficiency, no wasted movements, no hesitation. The spaceport adjoining the arena complex was her only hope. Kira slipped between cargo containers, her heart pounding against her ribcage. A freighter was preparing for departure, its loading ramp still down as the final supplies were brought aboard. She waited until the dockworkers turned away, then darted across the open space and into the ship's cargo hold. Finding a space between stacked crates, she wedged herself in, controlling her breathing as the ship's engines hummed to life. Hours passed before Kira dared to move. The ship had jumped to hyperspace, she could feel the distinctive vibration through the hull. She needed water, medical attention for the wounds she'd sustained in her escape. Cautiously, she emerged from her hiding place. The cargo hold was dimly lit and filled with containers marked in human script. Kira had fought against enough humans in the arena to recognize their language, though she couldn't read it. She was searching for anything that might contain water when the door slid open. A human male stood in the doorway, a blaster aimed at her chest. He was tall for his species, with dark hair tied back and several days' worth of stubble on his face. A scar ran through his left eyebrow, giving him a perpetually skeptical expression. "Well," he said, his voice surprisingly calm, "you're definitely not part of my manifest." Kira tensed, ready to fight despite her exhaustion. "I mean no harm to you or your vessel." The human's eyebrows rose slightly at her perfect command of his language. "That's reassuring, considering you're the one who's trespassing." His eyes narrowed as he took in her appearance, the battle scars, the arena markings. "You're a fighter." It wasn't a question. "I was. Now I am simply trying to survive." The human studied her for a long moment. "I'm Captain Marcus Riley. This is my ship, the Horizon Chaser." "And you are?" "Kira," she replied, seeing no reason to lie. "I escaped from the Arcturus fighting pits." Riley's expression darkened. "Those places are illegal in civilized space." "Yet they thrive," Kira said bitterly. "Will you turn me in? There is likely a bounty already." The captain holstered his weapon with a sigh. "I make it a policy not to do business with slavers. But I can't have stowaways either." He gestured toward the door. "Let's get you cleaned up while I figure out what to do with you." As Kira followed him through the corridors of the small freighter, she remained wary. Humans were unpredictable, she'd learned that in the arena. But for now, she would accept this temporary reprieve. Freedom, she was discovering, came with its own kind of uncertainty. The medical bay of the Horizon Chaser was Spartan but functional. Marcus watched as Kira examined the medical supplies with cautious interest. Her movements were precise, deliberate, nothing wasted. A warrior's economy of motion. Your dialect suggests core worlds training, Kira observed as she applied a healing compound to her wounds. Yet you operate in the outer rim. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. And your understanding of human languages suggests you've had more contact with my kind than most Nexians. I fought many species in the arena. Learning their languages helped me anticipate their movements. She flexed her wounded arm, testing the bandage. The masters encouraged such study. Masters, Marcus repeated with distaste. You know there's probably already a bounty on you. The fighting circuits don't like losing their investments. Kira's amber eyes met his. Then why not claim it? A human smuggler surely has debts to pay. I transport goods of questionable legality, Marcus corrected. Not people. There's a difference. Before Kira could respond, the ship's alarm blared. A voice came through the intercom, female, urgent. Captain, we've got company. Tracer signal locked on us. Bounty hunters, by the look of their configuration. Marcus swore under his breath. That was fast. He turned to Kira. Stay here. If they're coming for me, I should. Stay. Here. His tone left no room for argument as he strode toward the bridge. Lyra Vex, his first mate, was already at the navigation console when he arrived. Her fingers danced across the controls, her expression grim beneath her shock of red hair. 3 ships, she reported without looking up. Bearing down fast. That stowaway must be worth something. Can we outrun them? Lyra snorted. In this bucket of bolts? Not a chance. Marcus dropped into the pilot's seat. Then we'll have to outsmart them. He activated the ship-wide comm. Dax, I need you in the engine room. We're going to try the Corsican maneuver. The what now? Came the bewildered response of their mechanic. Just be ready to overload the port thrusters on my mark. Marcus guided the ship toward a dense asteroid belt, the pursuing vessels closing in rapidly. The plan was risky: simulate an engine malfunction, create a debris field, and slip away in the confusion. A blast rocked the ship, sending sparks cascading from a nearby panel. They're firing. Lyra shouted unnecessarily. I noticed, Marcus gritted through clenched teeth. The bridge door slid open, and Kira entered, her expression calm despite the chaos. You need help. I told you to stay in medical, Marcus snapped. Your ship is under attack because of me, she replied evenly. I can assist. Another blast hit them, harder this time. Warning lights flashed across the console. Fine, Marcus relented. Weapons station. Do you know how to? Yes. Kira slid into the seat, hands moving confidently over the controls. We had combat simulators between arena matches. Marcus exchanged a glance with Lyra, who shrugged. Can't be worse than your aim, Captain. With Kira at weapons, they managed to disable one pursuer's engines and damage another's navigation system. The third remained doggedly on their tail as they weaved through the asteroid field. Dax, Marcus called over the comm. Now. The port thrusters flared brilliantly, then died. The ship spun, giving the appearance of being critically damaged. Debris from their outer hull plating, strategically loosened for just this purpose, scattered in their wake. Under minimal power, they slipped behind a massive asteroid as their pursuer cautiously approached the debris field, scanning for life signs. Power down everything but life support, Marcus ordered. And hope they take the bait. Minutes stretched into an hour as they drifted silently. Finally, the scanner showed the remaining hunter ship turning away, presumably to report back. They'll be back, Kira said quietly. With reinforcements. Then we'd better be gone by then. Marcus reactivated the ship's systems. Setting course for Helion Station. I know someone who can help us there. Later, as they limped through space at reduced power, Marcus found Kira in the galley, staring out at the stars. You handled yourself well back there, he admitted. Those targeting systems aren't exactly user-friendly. It was not so different from the arena. Anticipate, react, survive. She turned to face him. Why are you helping me? Marcus considered the question. Let's just say I've spent enough time running myself to recognize someone who deserves a chance. A chance, Kira repeated, testing the word. I haven't had one of those in a long time. Well, don't get too comfortable. We're not out of this yet. But despite his cautious words, something had shifted between them. A tentative trust, born in the heat of battle. As Marcus left the galley, he found Lyra waiting in the corridor, arms crossed. She's dangerous, Lyra warned. I've heard stories about those arena fighters. We're all dangerous in our own way, Marcus replied. Besides, we've already got bounty hunters on our tail. Might as well have someone who can fight on our side. Lyra shook her head but didn't argue further. They both knew that whatever came next, their lives had become irrevocably entangled with the violet-skinned warrior who had sought refuge on their ship. And the hunters were still out there, searching. Helion Station hung in the darkness like a tarnished jewel, its once gleaming hull now mottled with patches and ad hoc repairs. What had begun as a mining outpost had evolved into a haven for those operating in the gray areas of galactic law, not quite criminal, but certainly not legitimate. Marcus guided the Horizon Chaser toward a private docking bay in the station's lower quadrant. His credentials were outdated, but the landing fee transferred from his account was current enough for the automated systems to grant them access. Welcome to Helion, he announced as they disembarked. Keep your head down and stay close. This place is neutral territory, but that doesn't mean it's safe. Kira pulled the hood of a borrowed jacket over her distinctive features. Her violet skin and luminescent battle markings would draw unwanted attention. Who is this friend you speak of? An old associate. Owes me a favor. Marcus led them through service corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares. Dr. Ilara Cade. Former military surgeon. These days she runs a clinic for people who don't ask questions. Lyra and Dax followed behind, the mechanic nervously fingering the blaster at his hip. The tension in the group was palpable, they were far from secure, even here. Dar. Cade's clinic was hidden in the residential sector, its entrance disguised as a maintenance hatch. Marcus knocked a specific pattern, and after a moment, the door slid open to reveal a woman with silver-streaked black hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Riley. Her tone was neither welcoming nor hostile. It's been a while. Not long enough, according to you, Marcus replied with a half-smile. We need help, Ilara. The doctor's gaze shifted to Kira, taking in what little was visible beneath the hood. Inside. Quickly. Once the door sealed behind them, Kira lowered her hood. Dr. Cade's expression didn't change, but her eyes widened slightly. A Nexian arena fighter, she observed. You've certainly upgraded your company, Riley. Can you help her? Marcus asked. She's got injuries from her escape, and we need somewhere to lay low. Dr. Cade gestured toward an examination room. Let's see what we're dealing with. While the doctor tended to Kira's wounds, Marcus briefed the others. They would resupply and make repairs while gathering information. The bounty on Kira would only increase, they needed to know what they were facing. Hours later, Kira emerged from the examination room looking stronger. The glow of her markings had intensified, a sign of improving health among her species. Your doctor is skilled, she acknowledged. She says I need to rest for 2 cycles. Then that's what you'll do, Marcus decided. Lyra, Dax, handle the resupply. I'll stay here with our guest. After the others departed, an uncomfortable silence settled between Marcus and Kira. They were alone for the first time since her discovery on his ship. "Your crew does not approve of your decision to help me," Kira finally said. Marcus shrugged. "They don't have to. It's my ship. Why do you continue to risk yourself? You could have left me at any port." He didn't answer immediately, instead moving to a viewport that offered a view of the sprawling station and the stars beyond. "I was a military pilot once," he said finally. "Fought in the Centauri conflict. When I refused an order to bomb civilian targets, they court-martialed me. I've been running ever since." Kira joined him at the viewport. "So you understand what it means to defy your masters?" "I do." Their eyes met, recognition passing between them, two fugitives from different worlds who had each chosen conscience over compliance. The moment was interrupted when Dr. Cade entered, her expression grave. "You've got trouble. The bounty on your Nexian friend has tripled. They're calling her a dangerous fugitive, responsible for killing guards during her escape." "Were they not trying to kill me?" Kira asked rhetorically. "Doesn't matter to the hunters," the doctor replied. "There's more. Someone's been asking questions about a ship matching the Horizon Chaser's description. Word spreads fast in a place like this." Marcus cursed under his breath. "We need to move sooner than planned." "Not tonight," Dr. Cade insisted. "She needs rest, and your ship needs repairs. Stay here. My clinic has security measures." That night, while the others slept, Kira found Marcus still awake, studying star charts on a datapad. "You should rest," she advised, settling beside him. "So should you," he countered without looking up. A silence fell between them, more comfortable than before. Kira studied his profile in the dim light, noting the tension in his jaw, the weariness in his eyes. "In the arena," she began slowly, "I learned to read my opponents. To understand their motivations, their fears." She paused. "You fear attachment more than death." Marcus finally looked at her, surprised by her insight. "And you?" "I feared nothing. That was how I survived." She held his gaze. "But freedom is frightening. There are too many choices." Without thinking, Marcus reached out, his fingers brushing against hers. The contact sent an unexpected current through them both. Kira's markings pulsed brighter in response. "What does that mean?" he asked softly, nodding toward the glowing patterns on her skin. "It means..." Kira hesitated, unaccustomed to vulnerability. "It means I am experiencing emotions I was trained to suppress." The space between them seemed to contract. Marcus leaned closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. Kira's breath caught, her warrior's composure momentarily forgotten. A sudden alert from the datapad shattered the moment. A message from Lyra: "Trouble. Return to ship. Betrayed." They sprang apart, the brief connection broken by the harsh reality of their situation. The hunt was on again, and this time, the danger was coming from within. The corridors of Helion Station blurred as Marcus and Kira raced toward the docking bay, Dr. Cade having provided them with a service route to avoid main thoroughfares. The doctor had pressed a medical kit into Marcus's hands before they left, a parting gift that spoke volumes about her expectations for their journey. "Who would betray us?" Kira asked as they ran, her movements fluid despite her recent injuries. "Hard to say," Marcus replied grimly. "Dax has gambling debts. Lyra's always been practical to a fault. Or could be someone at the station recognized you." He checked his blaster. "We'll find out soon enough." They approached the bay cautiously, using maintenance shafts to gain a vantage point above the Horizon Chaser. The ship appeared intact, but a group of armed figures surrounded it, bounty hunters, by their mismatched armor and specialized weapons. Among them stood Dax, gesturing animatedly as he spoke with the lead hunter. There's your answer, Marcus muttered, his expression hardening. Kira's eyes narrowed. Where is your first mate? As if in response, a commotion erupted near the ship's ramp. Lyra was being dragged out by two hunters, struggling fiercely despite her restraints. She didn't sell us out, Marcus realized, a mixture of relief and concern washing over him. We need a distraction, Kira said, scanning the area. Her gaze settled on a cluster of fuel cells near the bay's maintenance station. Can you shoot from here? Marcus followed her line of sight. That'll be one hell of a distraction. Just enough to create chaos, not destroy the bay, she clarified. On my signal, target the control panel, not the cells themselves. Without waiting for his agreement, Kira slipped away, descending toward the bay floor with silent efficiency. Marcus positioned himself, taking aim at the maintenance panel as instructed. Kira moved like a shadow through the clutter of the docking bay, unseen by the hunters focused on interrogating Lyra. She reached the opposite side of the bay, then deliberately knocked over a stack of containers. The hunters spun toward the noise. Marcus fired, his shot striking the maintenance panel. Warning klaxons blared as emergency protocols engaged, sending jets of fire suppression foam spraying across the bay. In the ensuing confusion, Kira launched herself at the hunters holding Lyra. Marcus provided covering fire as he made his way down to the bay floor. The hunters scattered, momentarily disoriented by the combination of alarms, foam, and unexpected attack. Kira had already freed Lyra and was engaging 3 hunters in close combat. Despite being outnumbered, her arena training made her a formidable opponent. Limbs became blurs as she struck with precision, each movement flowing into the next like a deadly dance. Marcus reached them, grabbing Lyra's arm. To the ship. Dax disabled the primary ignition sequence, Lyra shouted over the alarms. We're grounded unless. I can bypass it, Marcus cut her off, already moving toward the ship. Get aboard. We'll have minutes at most. As they fought their way to the ramp, a stun blast caught Kira in the back. She stumbled, her markings flickering as she struggled to stay upright. Marcus turned back, firing rapidly to cover her. Go! Kira commanded, her voice strained. Not without you, Marcus responded, closing the distance between them. He slung her arm over his shoulder, supporting her weight as they staggered toward the ship. A hunter appeared before them, weapon raised. Before he could fire, Lyra emerged from the ship's ramp and landed a perfect shot, dropping him where he stood. Hurry, she urged. Once aboard, Marcus raced to the bridge while Lyra sealed the ramp. Get her to medical, he ordered, already working on bypassing the sabotaged ignition system. The ship hummed to life as Marcus rerouted power through secondary systems. Outside, the hunters regrouped, realizing their quarry was escaping. Blaster fire peppered the hull as the Horizon chaser lifted off, its shields barely holding. Hang on. Marcus called over the comms as he executed a dangerous maneuver, using the station's own structure as a shield before plotting a desperate jump to hyperspace. Stars stretched into streaks of light as they escaped, the pursuing ships left behind, temporarily, at least. In the medical bay, Lyra tended to Kira's injuries. The stun blast had aggravated her previous wounds, but nothing was life-threatening. Why did you come back for me? Lyra asked quietly. After what Dax did, you could have assumed I was part of it. Kira's amber eyes studied the human woman. Marcus trusts you. And I have learned that assumptions about loyalty are often wrong. When Marcus joined them later, the three sat in weary silence, processing the betrayal and narrow escape. What happens now? Lyra finally asked. They know our ship. They know our faces. We need a new plan, Marcus admitted. Somewhere they won't expect us to go. Kira sat up straighter, her expression resolute despite her injuries. I have an idea. One that might end this hunt permanently. I'm listening, Marcus said, moving closer to her. The Arcturus fighting pits are controlled by a syndicate that bribes officials to look the other way. But if evidence of their operation reached the Galactic Council directly. She met his gaze. We could expose them. That's suicide, Lyra interjected. You want to go back to the place you just escaped from? Not exactly, Kira explained. The Syndicate has a central command facility on Vega Prime. Security would be focused on protecting their data, not expecting an infiltration. Marcus considered this. Even if we got the evidence, how would we ensure the Council acts on it? I know someone, Lyra said slowly. An old contact who works in Council security. If we can get the data to her, she'd make sure it reached the right people. As they discussed details, Marcus found himself studying Kira's face, the determination in her eyes, the set of her jaw. Something had changed between them since that moment in Dr. Cade's clinic. The connection they'd begun to form had deepened, strengthened by shared danger and mutual respect. When Lyra left to check the ship's damage reports, Marcus moved to sit beside Kira. This plan of yours is dangerous, he said quietly. All worthy endeavors are, she replied. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. This time, neither pulled away. Kira's markings glowed brightly, illuminating the dim medical bay. If we succeed, Marcus began, then hesitated. After this is over. Kira leaned forward, closing the distance between them. Their lips met in a tentative kiss that quickly deepened, years of isolation and loneliness giving way to newfound desire. Her skin was warmer than a human's, her markings pulsing with each racing heartbeat. When they finally separated, both slightly breathless, Marcus traced the luminescent patterns on her arm with gentle fingers. I never expected this, he admitted. When I found you in my cargo hold. Nor did I, Kira replied softly. But the arena taught me to recognize opportunities when they appear. Her expression grew serious. Tomorrow we may face our greatest battle yet. Then we face it together, Marcus promised, pulling her close once more as the ship carried them toward their final confrontation. Vega Prime loomed in the view screen, a planetary jewel wrapped in the velvet of space. Its gleaming cityscape masked the corruption beneath, corporate towers and government buildings that served as facades for the criminal enterprises flourishing in their shadows. Approach vector locked in, Marcus announced from the pilot's seat. Remember, we're registered as a supply transport. Lyra's forged credentials should hold, at least until we reach the surface. Kira stood behind him, her violet skin now concealed beneath synth-flesh patches that gave her the appearance of a human, albeit with unusual coloration that might pass for cosmetic modification. Her luminescent markings had been temporarily suppressed with a compound from Dr. Cade's medical supplies. The discomfort is worth the disguise, she had assured Marcus when he expressed concern about the procedure. Lyra monitored communications as they descended toward the landing pad adjacent to the commercial district. So far, so good. No unusual security chatter. The plan was precarious but direct. The Syndicate's headquarters occupied the upper levels of the Vega Trade Tower. Their objective was to infiltrate the central database, extract evidence of the illegal fighting pits, and transmit it to Lyra's council contact before escaping. As they landed, a customs official approached for the standard inspection. Marcus greeted him with practiced casualness, presenting their falsified documentation while Kira remained in the shadows of the cargo hold, where the official wouldn't look too closely. Delivery for Nexus imports, Marcus explained, pointing to several crates stamped with the company's logo. Nothing exciting, just synthetic textiles. The official performed a cursory scan, then nodded. Cleared for 48 hours. Standard docking fees apply. Once alone, they prepared for the infiltration. Lyra would remain with the ship, monitoring security channels and prepared for a quick departure. Marcus and Kira would pose as corporate analysts, using access codes purchased from an informant on Helion Station. "Remember," Marcus said as they approached the towering headquarters, "we're not fighters, we're mid-level data specialists." "Boring, unremarkable." Kira's lips curved in a slight smile. "I believe that will be more challenging for me than combat would be." The Syndicate's security was sophisticated but designed primarily to keep outsiders from entering, not to scrutinize those already inside. Their forged credentials passed the initial scanners, and they found themselves in the gleaming atrium of the Vega Trade Tower. 19th floor, Marcus murmured, consulting the building directory on his datapad. Security increases above the 15th. They entered a lift along with several corporate workers, all too absorbed in their own affairs to pay attention to the newcomers. As the lift ascended, Kira's hand found Marcus's, a brief squeeze communicating more than words could. On the 19th floor, they followed memorized directions to a quiet corridor housing data terminals. Marcus inserted an override chip into the door lock while Kira kept watch. "Clear," she whispered as the door slid open. Inside, banks of computer terminals hummed quietly. Marcus moved to the central console, inserting the data spike Lyra had programmed. "We need 2 minutes for the spike to bypass security and locate the files," he explained, eyes fixed on the progress indicator. "We may not have 2 minutes," Kira responded tensely, her enhanced hearing picking up approaching footsteps. "Someone's coming." Marcus continued working while Kira positioned herself near the door. When it opened and a security officer entered, she was prepared. "Oh! You startled me," she exclaimed, adopting a flustered demeanor entirely unlike her usual composed self. "We're just finishing the quarterly data audit. Terribly boring stuff." The officer frowned. "I wasn't informed of any audit today." "It was scheduled last minute," Marcus interjected smoothly, his fingers still working on the console. "Orders from Director Venn himself. You can check with his office if you'd like, but I wouldn't recommend interrupting his meeting with the Orion delegates." The name drop worked. The officer hesitated, clearly unwilling to risk disturbing a superior over what seemed a minor matter. "Finish quickly," he finally instructed before departing. 60 more seconds, Marcus murmured once they were alone again. "Got it," Marcus announced, removing the spike. "We need to." Alarms blared suddenly, cutting him off. Red emergency lights bathed the room as security protocols engaged. "They've discovered Dax," Kira realized. "He must have warned them we were coming." "We need to move," Marcus urged, pocketing the data spike. "Alternate route, just like we planned." They abandoned stealth for speed, racing toward the service corridors that would lead them to a secondary exit. Security forces converged on the building, but their focus was on the main entrances, not the maintenance routes. "Lyra," Marcus called into his communicator. "Start the engines. We're coming in hot." "Negative," came the tense reply. "Landing pads already blocked. They're waiting for you." Kira and Marcus exchanged glances. Their escape route was cut off. Plan B, Kira decided. "We transmit the data from here." They found a communication terminal in a deserted office. While Marcus worked to establish a secure connection to Lyra's council contact, Kira stood guard, her fighting instincts fully alert. "Upload beginning," Marcus reported. 30 seconds to completion. The door burst open. 3 armed men entered, weapons raised, not security officers, but professional hunters, their expressions coldly efficient. "Step away from the terminal," one ordered. "The bounty specifies alive, but it doesn't say unharmed." Marcus continued the upload, knowing every second counted. Kira moved with blinding speed, her suppressed warrior nature unleashed. She disarmed the first hunter before he could fire, using his weapon to incapacitate the second. The third managed to get off a shot that grazed Marcus's shoulder before Kira neutralized him. Upload complete, Marcus announced through gritted teeth, pain radiating from his wound. More will come, Kira warned, helping him to his feet. We need to reach Lyra. They fought their way to the building's roof, hoping to signal the Horizon Chaser for extraction. The ship appeared moments later, hovering precariously as Lyra maneuvered it against the buffeting winds. Jump, her voice crackled through the communicator as she lowered the ship as much as she dared. Hunters burst onto the roof just as Marcus and Kira leapt across the gap to the waiting ship. Blaster fire sizzled around them as Lyra pulled away, accelerating toward the atmosphere. Did the transmission go through? Kira asked as they collapsed in the cargo hold, exhausted. Every byte, Lyra confirmed from the cockpit. My contact confirms receipt. It's being presented to the Council Security Committee as we speak. Marcus winced as Kira examined his wounded shoulder. So it's over? For the Syndicate, yes, Kira replied, applying a med patch from the emergency kit. The evidence is irrefutable. The fighting pits will be shut down, the captives freed. Hours later, as the Horizon Chaser drifted in deep space, safely beyond pursuit, news began filtering through official channels. The Galactic Council had ordered immediate raids on all known Syndicate properties. Arrest warrants had been issued for dozens of officials involved in the fighting pit operations. In the captain's quarters, Marcus sat beside Kira on the narrow bunk, their bodies close in the confined space. What will you do now? He asked softly. You're free to go anywhere, do anything. Kira's markings, no longer suppressed, glowed with a gentle blue light. She considered the question seriously. In the arena, I learned to survive, she said finally. But I never learned to live. Her eyes met his. I would like to learn. With you, if that is acceptable. Marcus smiled, reaching out to trace the luminescent patterns on her arm. More than acceptable. Their lips met, the kiss deeper and more certain than their first. Kira's markings pulsed brighter as Marcus's hands explored the contours of her body, both discovering the differences and similarities between their species. They undressed each other slowly, each touch a revelation. Kira's violet skin was smooth beneath his fingers, warming wherever he caressed. Her markings responded to his touch, glowing more intensely as her arousal grew. Marcus gasped as Kira's hands found sensitive places, her warrior's precision now turned to pleasure rather than combat. Their bodies moved together with increasing urgency, finding a rhythm that transcended their different anatomies. When they finally joined completely, Kira's markings blazed with brilliant light, illuminating the room as they moved as one. The barriers between them, species, history, all the distances they had traveled, dissolved in the heat of their connection. Afterward, they lay together in contented silence, the stars visible through the small viewport above the bunk. The universe is vast, Kira murmured, her head resting on Marcus's chest. I never thought I would have the chance to see it. Where should we go first? Marcus asked, stroking her hair. Kira smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her usually serious features. It doesn't matter, as long as we're free to choose our own battles from now on. On the bridge, Lyra plotted a course to distant stars, leaving behind the shadows of their past as the Horizon Chaser carried them toward whatever adventures awaited, no longer fugitives, but explorers of their newly won freedom.